Alright, so welcome back everybody. So for this video, I'm going to show you guys how to play Life of the Amazonia. So let's get started because there's a lot to explain for sure. So, in Life of the Amazonia, this is a bag building game. Now, bag building games are very similar to deck building games. Just like with a deck of cards, you have a discard pile, okay? And just like in a deck building game, when your discard pile is full and your, deck is empty, you will shuffle your cards from your discard pile to form a new deck. It's the same thing with a bag building game. Here we have our bag, and it's full of tokens, okay? And when our bag is completely empty and there's nothing else in here, and something tells us to grab a token from our bag, then all of the tokens that are in our boat here, which is our discard pile, will go back into the bag, as so, like that. I gotta say, these boats, I absolutely love them. Not only are they cool, but it makes it extremely useful and much more easier to, basically put the tokens back into the bag. So this is extremely functional. These boats are extremely functional. So, I'm giving these boats a 10 just because of that. Okay, so that's what a bag building game is. Very similar in that respects to a deck building game. Now, in Life of the Amazonia, the flow of the game is we're trying to obviously, first of all, build a jungle. Okay, we're each trying to build the best jungle that we can. And to do that, we're going to obviously need a bigger jungle. This is our starting jungle. Every player gets a starting tile like this. Okay, and so we're going to obviously need to make it bigger. Okay, with more of these tiles. Okay, but that means we also need to add trees and aquatic flowers to make our jungle even bigger and more prosperous, obviously. And obviously, we need to add all of these types of animals, too, to make it even better. And so, the object of the game is to try to get as many victory points as you can based on how you place your animals into your jungle, how well you do with the Waterfall of Life. You can get a lot of victory points with this. There's even some bonus cards here that you can purchase to give you extra points. So there's a variety of different ways you can get points in this game. Animals, obviously the Waterfall of Life, and bonus cards can give you, obviously, victory points in this game. Now, the flow of the game is everybody, so not everybody, but the starting player, they will grab 5 tokens from their bag. And remember, if they can't grab all 5 because the bag is empty or only has 3 or whatever, then they will take the 3, and just like in a deck building game, they're going to dump all of the tokens that are in this boat back into the bag to draw what they need. So yeah, they can draw 5 tokens. So let's do that. Let's draw some tokens here. So we got this, 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 and then one more we can grab. This. There we go. Now, on our turn, we can take as many actions as we would like or are able to. Meaning, instead of, in some games, you take an action, only one action, and then it's the next person's turn. But in this game, you will take as many actions as you can possibly take. And they can be different actions as long as you have the coin to pay for them. Okay? Now, there are 4 different types of coins in this game. So, since this is an explanation video, I'm going to go ahead and just take out the rest of the resource tokens from the bag for now, okay? So you can see all of them. So here's the other 5, okay? These are your starting coins. You get 2 of these 2 currency coins, okay? Which are used to buy more of the other types of resources. So you usually use these coins mostly to buy more leaf tokens, because you only start with 2 ones, and to also do that to purchase more water resource tokens, which you only start with 2 ones, And you also do that to buy more fruit, okay? Fruit tokens. And you only start with the 1, 2. And I hate to break it to you, but that one fruit on its own can't get you a single animal unless you have an ability that says otherwise. So there are insects in this game that can give you abilities that are a one-time ability that could potentially get you an animal with just this one fruit. Meaning, regardless though, if you don't have those abilities, then you need more of these, okay? So, you want to obviously purchase more animals. We'll get to how the animals work and how much they cost in a moment. But here we have one of the two resource token vaults, and here's the other one, okay? In here, you can purchase more fruit tokens. As an action, you can do that. So, this was the original equation, right? It was something like that. This was over here. So, if I wanted to, I could spend, because this was the original equation here, I could spend as an action, I could put these, this 2, this 1, and this 1, that would make 4 money, and I could discard it to purchase another one of these fruit tokens. Now, whenever you purchase a resource token, this is one of the actions in the game. Whenever you purchase a resource token, what you purchase will go into the boat. Meaning it won't be, just like in a deck building game like Dominion, for instance, you're going to not be able to use your purchase for a while. So, just so you know, that's one of the things that you can do. So that's one of the type of actions you can do. You can do that. And so this is like the cheapest one for fruit, but you're going to want some of these when you get more money. Okay? Well, then that means you need to purchase, obviously, more money too, right? And so you can do that. And so you can spend 2 money to get another 2 coin, or you can spend 5 money to get another 3 coin, and so on. Of course, you're still going to want to get the other coins, the leaf and the water coins, or water resources as well. Okay, so that means you're going to need coins for those. So you're going to be spending a lot of your time on, when it comes to purchasing more resource tokens, using your currency tokens to do that. You're going to be doing most of that with just that. So that's one of the actions you can take, is purchasing more resource tokens, okay? That's one of the major actions that you can take. Now, there are 8 actions in total, and we've only talked about 1 action, okay? So 7 more to go. 7 more potential actions in this game. Now, you'll be using the leaf tokens and the water tokens and the food tokens to also purchase animals to put into your jungle. Some animals only cost fruit. Like, for instance, for this particular game, the tamarin only costs 5 fruit. So some only cost fruit. But some cost other things, like the leaf frog here. Let me grab that if I can. The leaf frog costs 3 fruit, but it also costs 1 water resource as well to purchase the leaf frog, obviously. The woodpecker, it costs 3 fruit as well, but it costs 1 leaf. So you'll be using your water and your leaf tokens to purchase animals. But the main thing you'll be using those tokens for is to purchase other things. So here we have this waterfall, and in order to get these tokens here, you have to use your water resources here to get these water flowers, these aquatic flowers, for instance, in order to get more tiles. So in order to purchase more of these tiles to add to your jungle, you're going to be using your leaf tokens for that. You're also going to be using these leaf tokens to purchase trees as well. So you'll be using them a lot. So you're definitely probably going to want more of these earlier than these. However, with that said, there is something else that the water resources buy you, and you'll be using them on purchasing insects. So if I want to purchase this insect, which gives me an instant ability, which I have to use right away, and we won't talk about what it does, but I have to spend I have to spend 4 water resources to purchase the blue morpho, okay? So that's one of the things that you can use your water resources to buy, is to purchase insects, okay? And they vary in price depending on their ability. But you can also use them to buy scenery cards. And the scenery cards are basically the bonus cards that give you extra victory points based on your jungle. So this one costs seven water resource tokens, okay? Now, when you're using your resource tokens for an action, let's say, for instance, I want to move my token. Let's get the waterfall in full view here. Let's say I have my token here already, okay? And I want to get another tree. Well, to do that, I would have to pay 2 leaf. Now, if I only had 1 leaf, there is another way I could get this taken care of. I can use 2 of any token as the 1 additional payment. So if I use these 2 currency ones, they could basically become the extra leaf that I need in order to move from here to here, okay? Which would get me another tree, okay? So that's something you can always do if you need to. That means you can do it for the animals. If you're off by 1 fruit or something like that, you can use 2 other resource tokens in exchange. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter the number. So for instance, if I was to do this one would not help. I mean, on its own. If I was to add this to the equation, it would not help. Yes, it has a 2 on it, but that you have to use 2 tokens. It does not matter the number. It could have a 5 on here. It could have a 10 on here. It wouldn't matter. You would have to have 2 tokens to equal the 1 extra resource. So using higher numbers isn't extremely useful for that reason. You want to save them for what they're actually supposed to be used for. But yeah, you would definitely want to, if you can, use your cheaper ones, especially in the beginning of the game, to obviously do this. But if I had to do it this way, and I didn't have 2 of the ones in another color or whatever, I could do this then instead, obviously, to move this up the 1 space that I need to move it up, okay? So that's something you can always do if you need to. It's just something that's there. I thought I'd make a mental note of in case I forgot to tell you guys later. So what are the other actions you can take in this game? Well, we kind of talked about these, okay? So one of the actions you can take is you can add another terrain tile to your jungle. And it gets more expensive as you do it. The first one is only going to cost you 1 leaf. But the next couple of times you buy terrain tiles, it's going to cost you 2 leaves. And so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. Okay? If you take the place a tree action, you of course have to pay, once again, leaf tokens if you're going to do that as well. And they get more expensive as you go. Now, you're probably wondering what all the other extra stuff is here. I'll get to that in a moment. And if you're going to purchase, so the 4th action you can take is obviously placing a aquatic flower, which costs, 1 water resource the first time, but then gets more expensive as you go. Now, whenever you place your disc on a spot that gives you this extra little thing here on the bottom, right above where the resource is that you have to pay, this is a bonus that you get immediately after you've purchased what you're purchasing in these 3 locations here, for instance, and this here, which we'll get to in a moment. So these bonuses can do a variety of things if you place it on this little hand here. So I'm going to grab the player aid instead of trying to zoom in on the camera. So this hand here is what this is, okay? And it says, draw a resource token from the resource bag. So that means you'd get to draw another one of these from your bag if there was one in there. And if there wasn't one in there and you obviously had resources here, then you could at least, put everything that was in here back in here to draw that one extra one you need. So that's an occasion that you might do that when it's not the start of your turn, but in the midst of your turn. So that's one of the bonuses that you can get at these locations. Then you'll notice This one has this icon here, which is this icon here, which is gain a seed. Now, seeds are used as a wild resource. So you know how earlier I talked about how if I didn't have enough to move from, here to here, right? That I could pay 2 resources to make it the 2 leaves I need. But if I had a seed token, I could use this as the 1 that I need, and I could pay these 2 things in order to pay for this. And I can use seeds for anything. I can use it for the water flowers, and I can use it for the tiles, and I can use it for the animals. So these seeds are very valuable that you could potentially get as a bonus as you do stuff, okay? So those bonuses there are acquired every time you reach them, okay? Now this bonus up here, what does that do? Okay, well, that is this one here, renew. It just allows you to renew the insects. So for instance, if you don't like certain insects that are out, you could discard them. And you could just start up to 2 of them, for instance, and then draw 2 from the deck, so you have more insects to choose from. That's basically what that's going to do. It's not super awesome, but it's a bonus that you could do, and you could do it with these scenery cards too. And if you don't like certain tiles out, you could discard these terrain tiles as well, and obviously redraw more terrain tiles that way. But that's what that icon is going to do. Okay. This one here, renew, okay? So those are 3 icons we've already talked about, but those are some of the bonuses that you can get. Now, here's another action you can take. So this is the storage action. This is why we have another 2 cubes here. If you spend 2 water, you can increase your storage by 1, making it 2. And if you do it again by spending 4 water resources, you can make it 3. What does storing do? Well, it's going to be hard at times to obviously purchase things or to use your resources on animals and things like that. And so in the beginning of the game, you're allowed to store 1 of your tokens. So for instance, if I don't use this, which in the beginning of the game, I'm not likely to use this, I could store it for later, okay? While everything else got discarded, so whether I used these other 4 resources or not, I would have to discard them, whether I used them or not. I'm only allowed to store 1. So if I didn't use these 4 for anything, they would just get discarded anyways. I can't save all of these. I can only save 1. So then these would get discarded, okay? But if you increase your storage, then you can obviously store more than 1 at the end of your turn. You could store like up to 3 based on where your disc was. So that's what that's going to allow you to do. It's going to allow you to store more resources and save them for future turns or a future turn. Of course, you're only allowed to do that once per turn, so that means they're going to be back in use for the next turn, and then you can do it again, obviously, with the same ones if you have to. But you're still limited to a maximum storage of a certain amount based on where your disc is. So that's another action you can take, and granted, you're probably only going to take this action twice in the entire game, so it's not likely to happen a lot. But it's something you're definitely going to want to do. Now you'll see this X with the gray on it. So this is another icon, another bonus that you would get to do if you want to do it, and it's called composting. You can choose 1 resource token from the discard pile, boat, or play area and immediately remove it from the game. So I could get rid of this 1 here for the currency if I wanted to and discard it from the game for the rest of the game. Now you're probably thinking, why do I want to do that? Well, because if you have a lot of these useless ones, these lower numbered ones, and you've got some 2s and you've got 3s and you've got 4s, you want to get those 3s. You want to get those 4s more than you want the 1s. But with the 1s in the bag, that means you're going to grab the higher numbers less often. So if you could potentially get rid of some of them when you can with compost, then that would be useful, getting rid of these 1s early on and making it so that way every time you draw, resources from the bag, they most likely will be high numbers at the least. So that's that's what that one is. It's extremely useful, and it shouldn't be ignored. That came in handy quite a bit. So that's another one of the bonuses that you can get. Then there's one other bonus, and it's called relocate. We'll talk about that later, okay? We'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that last because that one is significant for later. But yeah, we talked about most of the bonuses with the exception of this one as well, the limited track bonus. So you also notice that there are some icons that aren't on the lower line here, like here. There's some in the middle here. The first player who gets their token to this location is the only one that would get that bonus, okay? If you're playing a 4-player game, it's the first 2 people that do it that manage to get their tokens there that get the bonus. But normally, if you're not playing a 4-player game, then it's the first person who gets his disc here that's going to get that additional bonus. That means that one is also included in that equation. Obviously, so is this one up here, and this one here, and this one here, which is another icon we didn't talk about, which is place a special terrain tile. So we'll talk about that later. So there's still 3 more bonus icons that we didn't talk about. But yeah, we've talked about most of the actions already, with the exception of obviously placing animals and how the animals work. Let's see here. So that leaves, how many actions? Okay, so purchase a nature card, we talked about briefly. So yeah, purchase a nature card. So that's another action you can take. So you can purchase these, obviously, insects or scenery, okay? It's your choice of what you can afford, obviously. So that's an action you can take. And that leaves, obviously, placing animals out. So we'll get to the animals in a moment. That will be the last thing we talk about. Let me get, where's my terrain tile? So here's my terrain tile. So here we have a terrain tile. You'll notice there's some bonuses on here as well. If you place something on a bonus, then you get that bonus immediately as well. So make mental note of that. So yeah, that's something you can do. Now, if you ever get to relocate something, you either get to relocate, a tree or a flower or an animal, okay? Relocating means is I can move, if I don't like the placement of this tamarin, and I get to take the relocate bonus, I could relocate it over here, for instance. As a for instance. That's all it does. It allows you to relocate something that you put down earlier, but you're like, wait a minute, it's going to benefit me so much more if it's on this side of my jungle than this side, for instance. So that's basically what that one does. The green one that we briefly talked about, place a special terrain tile, allows you to place these special terrain tiles, and there's one of each of them. So this is just this is just 2 of the 3. You can place it wherever you want. You can place it so it's adjacent to 2 tiles like that to extend the river here. You can also use it to cover up something. So like, for instance, if I want more water, I could cover up this forest here, making it bigger. So I can do that too. So that's what getting to do that does, is that bonus allows you to potentially expand certain terrains. You can never cover something that's already covered, though. So if there was an animal or a tree or a flower at one of these locations, I could not cover it up with one of these tiles. But yeah, that's what that does. All right, so we've explained all of the bonuses. So with that said, there is an action you can take that allows you to purchase bonuses. You can purchase these 4 bonuses. So one of the bonuses you can purchase is that relocate bonus, which is pretty much the only way, unless I haven't seen an insect or something that does this. But for 4 money, you can purchase the relocate bonus. For 5 money, you can purchase that compost bonus, which allows you to obviously get rid of those cheaper coins. For 7 money, you can purchase the green special tile bonus, which is these things, okay? And for 3 leaves, you can purchase a seed. So that's another action you can take, is purchasing bonuses. So that pretty much only leaves the main action of the game, the one that is what makes this game so fun, obviously. And that's the animals. So let's talk about the animals now. Okay, let's talk about the animals. We're going to talk about them one at a time. We're only going to talk about the ones that are basically for the beginner level and we're also going to talk about unique animals. Each player will get one unique animal. So in the game, in the setup, you're going to get 2 unique animals, which are these cards on this side. You're going to get to look at them for the setup, and then you're going to choose one to keep. This unique animal here, this special one, this anaconda, is only for the player who got it. So it'll make your jungle even more unique by having an animal that only you have. You granted, you could get some of these animals over here and hoard all the frogs easily. You could do that easily, and the other player didn't get any frogs. That could happen. But this will definitely make it so you for sure have at least one animal in your jungle that makes your jungle unique. They also have special abilities, but they also have special placement things too. So generally, for the regular base animals, you just pay the resources that they cost in order to play them into your jungle, right? Well, here with the anaconda, you have to meet its other requirement. So you don't use resource tokens to place your special animal, but you have to meet its requirement. So this one has to be adjacent to at least 2 animals. So that's what the paw print means, 2 animals. And in case you're wondering, insects do not count as animals in this game. So that's not what this is. This is not included in this symbol here. So, but yeah, that's something you'd have to do with the anaconda here, the green anaconda, is you'd have to have already 2 animals out, obviously, in your jungle. And you would have to have them next to each other, or in a way that this anaconda could be placed adjacent to both of them. Okay? And then it gives you an ability for the rest of the game. For this anaconda, it reduces the cost of an animal by 1 fruit, meaning, once again, insects are not animals in this game, so it doesn't affect them, but it affects the other animals that you're playing with. It reduces the cost by 1 fruit once per turn. That could be very helpful. You can do it once per turn. Because remember, you are allowed to take as many actions as you can, as you want. So that means you could potentially purchase multiple animals on the same turn, which is why it says only once per turn, because you only get to reduce the cost 1 time per turn. So that's the thing. Purchasing 2 animals, but you're only reducing the cost by 1. Still, that's powerful regardless. So that's just one of the possible special unique animals you might have. So and it still has a placement rule as well. So all of the animals, well, pretty much all of the animals here have a placement rule, where you have to place them in a certain location. And there are some animals that are so big that they actually take up 2 hexes. So normally, an animal, a tree, and an aquatic flower only takes up 1 hex. But there are some animals that take up 2 hexes, and the anaconda is one of them that takes up 2. This means that it has to be at least on 1 marsh. So like I said, there's marsh, forest, and river. So it has to be on at least 1 marsh. But then the other tile, when you see this in gray, it means it can be anything. So it could be another marsh, it could be on this forest, it could also be on this river. But it has to be on 1 marsh for sure when it's placed. So not only do you have to be able to place it next to 2 animals, but it also has to be in a marsh and obviously 1 other hex as well. So, if there's nothing here, you can't place it half on here and then half on the table. That wouldn't work. So yeah, that's how that works for the anaconda. So let's zoom. I think we're going to zoom in. Yes, we're going to zoom in now. We're going to talk about each animal and how they function. And then I think that will be all you guys need to know in order to play your first game. That will be most of everything, with the exception of how scoring is going to work. And we'll probably mention scoring last, once again, just in case. So let's start with the tamarins, because they're closer to me. Okay, so here's the tamarin card. Here's the tamarins. So first of all, they're going to cost 5 fruit to place into your jungle. They can be on any terrain type. That means you can put them in a river, you can put them in the jungle, you can put them on the marsh. Okay? Don't be shy. They can go on the river just fine in this game. And then it tells you how it's going to score. Now, tamarins will score. The star thing is victory points here. So the tamarin's going to score you based on the number of animals in its habitat. and you can't have other tamarins in the same habitat. What does habitat mean? Well, let's get the terrain tile back out. Habitat would be one of one type. So if the tamarin was here, his habitat would be these 3 hexes only, because these two and these two are a different habitat, but these are all connected. Now, if there was another terrain tile and it had a marsh, but it wasn't connected, then this would be habitat. This would be habitat 2, habitat 3, habitat 4, habitat 5, habitat 6. So it's only for the animals in the same habitat as the tamarin that are going to help you score points. That's what that means. So, for instance, if you can get 2 other animals in the same habitat as the tamarin, that's going to score you 2 points at the end of the game for each tamarin in its own habitat. So if you have another tamarin in the same habitat, it's not going to score you anything. You want to get those tamarins into separate habitats. And that's why it's there. So, yeah, if you can get a lot of animals, you could potentially get a lot of points, but not a lot. I mean, that's still not a lot of victory points in general. And that's not something easily done. But that's how the tamarin is going to work and score, obviously. So the giant otter is next. And this is one of the big ones. So this is going to take up 2 spaces on your... Okay, it's going to take up 2 spaces on your... in your jungle. And that's what this icon means. Now, it means it can go in any type, terrain type, but they have to be the same terrain type, both of them. So that means it has to be the same. So it can't be like this, because that's not the same habitat. It has to be the same habitat, but it can be any terrain type, as long as it's the same habitat. And then it's going to cost 8 fruit and 2 leaves to obviously purchase, or for resource-wise. And then the way it's going to score is based on the number of hexes in its habitat. So if you can get a lot of tiles into the same habitat that it is in, you can score quite a few points if you can try to make the biggest river, for instance, or the biggest forest, or the biggest marsh, based on where your otter is. And then, obviously, this is what you're going to get. I played the game, and I had 19 as the high for my giant otter. Just one off, and I would have gotten that extra 2 points. But yeah, that's how you're going to score with the giant otter. And each one will score based on where it is in its habitat. So just make mental note of it. And it doesn't say other otters. So that means the other otter, if you have 2 otters in the same habitat, they'll score. Both score, regardless. Each separately. But they'll both score because it doesn't have that additional information that excludes other otters in the same habitat. And that's how that's going to work with the giant otter. Okay, leaf frog. Let's do the leaf frog next. Okay, so the leaf frog, it can be placed in a marsh or a river. Okay, it's going to cost 3 fruit and it's going to cost 1 water. Now, the way the frog works is each grouping of a leaf frog and a flower scores you 4 victory points. So, for instance, if I had the frog here and the flowers there, that pair right there gives me 4 victory points. If I had a frog over here, but not next to that, this doesn't give me anything. And if this frog was adjacent to this one, it still doesn't give me anything, because they each have to have their own flowers. So they have to have their own flowers adjacent to them to score points, because it's for each pair, all right? Each grouping, each pair. So this is a group, this is a group. So it would be this, obviously. This would be a group, this would be a group. So that's how the leaf frog is going to work. 4 points for each. Very simple and easy, for sure. Okay, so let's do the woodpeckers next, because they're going to score similarly as well. So the way the woodpecker works is it's each grouping of 1 woodpecker and 1 adjacent tree scores you the 4 points. So if I have a tree, and trees have to go in the forest, but the woodpecker can go in a forest or a marsh. So I could put the woodpecker next to the tree there, and that would score me 4 points, for instance. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, these aquatic flowers have to go in water, okay? They have to go in the river, before I forget. And then, of course, he costs the same amount of fruit as the frog did, but it costs 1 leaf instead of 1 water. But that's how the woodpecker is going to work. Okay. All right, so then the caiman is next. Okay, so the caiman. Caiman is another big one. He's going to take up 2 hexes, okay? Now, he has to be placed in at least 1 water tile, but he can be placed anywhere else after the fact. So he could be placed like this, 1 water and 1 forest, a water and a marsh, for instance. He could also be placed in both water. That's fine too, okay? And then he's going to score you based on the amount of flowers that share the same river habitat with him. So if he is in the river and there are 2 flowers in the same river as him, then he's going to score 3 victory points. And if you can get more flowers, you're going to get more victory points. Okay? That's how the caiman is going to work. And he costs 6 fruit and 2 water to put into your jungle. So that's how he's going to work. Okay, macaw is next, and then we still have 2 more animals. Let me grab the other animals because they're farther away first, just in case. Okay, so the macaw. The macaw has to be placed in a forest as the first hex, and then the second hex can be anything, any terrain type. And once again, the macaw is another one that's going to take up 2 spaces on your hex, 2 hexes. So for instance, he could go like that, for instance. That's a legal placement. So that's what you could do with him. Okay? And then he costs 6 fruit and 2 leaves to put into your jungle. Now he's going to score based on the number of forests, or should I say trees, in the same forest habitat. So if you can get a bunch of trees into the same habitat as him, you can score a lot of points with him. And if you got 10 or more trees in the same habitat, that's 11 points for the macaw. So that's how the macaw is going to work. Okay. Next, we'll go to the toucan. Okay, so the toucan, it can go into any terrain type, okay? And it only takes up 1 hex, obviously. It needs 5 fruit and 2 water resources. But the thing is, with toucans, is even though they can be placed in any terrain type, they're only going to score you 4 points when they are placed on a bonus. Each toucan scores 4 stars, or 4 points, if placed on a placement bonus hex. So the toucan would have to be placed like here, for instance, because that's a bonus. Or here, for instance, because that's a bonus. Or here, for instance, because that's a bonus. And that would be the only way that toucan would score you the 4 points, is if it was placed in those bonuses. So it gives you a reason to place the toucan in the bonuses for sure. You're going to want to do that. Now, it also gives you another bonus. Whenever you place a toucan into a bonus, you get a lightning bolt, which activates its ability, which allows you to duplicate the same bonus. So, for instance, if I was to place the toucan here into this bonus with the hand, instead of getting just one resource from my bag, I get to draw 2 resources from this bag if I place the toucan here, for instance. That means if I place the toucan here, I get to do 2 composting. If I placed it here, I'd get 2 seeds, for instance. So that's a nice little handy additional benefit of placing the toucan. You get to get those bonuses, a whole lot more bonuses with them. So that's how the toucan is going to work. And then our last basic animal for the game is the jaguar. And he costs 10 fruit, okay? Now he has to be placed in a marsh, but the second tile can be any terrain type, okay? So he could be placed there, for instance, okay? And he is big, so he's going to take up 2 hexes. All right, and then each jaguar will score you 3 victory points for every adjacent animal, but that also excludes all jaguars. So, for instance, if I had another jaguar next to him, Well, this one doesn't score me anything. This one doesn't score me anything right now because they're adjacent to each other. They don't score anything on each other. But if I had just the one jaguar, but I had other animals, you know, next to it, for instance, and remember, tamarins can go in water too, for instance, I could score a lot more points. 3, 6, 9 victory points for these 3 animals. That means but the max I can get for each jaguar, because it's for each jaguar that scores 3, for each jaguar, the max amount of victory points I can get is 5. Or should I say 5 animals adjacent to it. So if I had 6 or 7 animals adjacent to it, it wouldn't matter because I can only score 15 victory points max. Still, that's a lot of victory points for one animal, for sure. So jaguar, you can score a lot of victory points with him, for sure. So 2 more animals could get me 15 easily. So, or 9 for the 3, obviously. But that's how the jaguar scores. And that's how the animals will work. So you'll add up all your points based on where you have animals in your jungle. You will obviously add victory points based on how well you did here on the Waterfall of Life, based on where your tokens are. So for instance, for the aquatic flowers, even if you just went up 1, you would still get 1 victory point. But if you managed to get all the way up here, that could score you 16 extra victory points, that alone. This one could score you up to 20 victory points for the trees. But for the terrain tiles, you don't get any extra victory points until you get your disc up to this point here, which is 4 points, or 15 if you get it all the way up to the top. So that's how you'll get victory points. That's 2 ways how you'll get the victory points that you need. Obviously, you will count up your victory points based on how well you did with these scenery cards. If you have seeds you didn't utilize, you'll get 1 additional point for the seeds that were left over. And then there's one more thing I did not mention. So there's a certain amount of each animal, okay? And now it's kind of a mess. Sorry about that. But when a certain animal is completely gone from here, so when all of the, let's say all of these otters were placed, okay? Let's say all of the giant otters, they were placed, okay? All 3 of them. That's a jaguar. They were all placed in somebody's jungle, okay? Well, once that happens, you're going to put a complete token basically on the animal card to indicate that that animal is complete. And then you'll do it every time another animal card is completed. And so when the 5th one of these complete tokens is placed, that triggers the end of the game, when the last one of these 5 covers an animal. Then the player who did that, who covered an animal with the last complete token, whoever did that, will score 5 additional extra points at the end of the game as a bonus for doing it. And then the other players playing the game will get 1 more turn. Just the ones that didn't place this complete token. So you may get the 5 victory points, but if you take the last animal of a particular type of animal from the base animals here, then you are ending your turn, and you will no longer have any more turns for the rest of the game. But then again, there's only 1 more turn for everybody else, so it's not like they're going to get to do a whole lot more, but still, they get to do something if they don't end the game that way. That's how the game is going to end. And then, if you, like I said, your victory points, whoever has the most victory points is going to win at the end of the game. That's pretty much everything you need to know in order to play Life of the Amazonia. So I hope I explained how to play this game well. I hope this helps you guys understand how to play. And if you guys liked my video, don't forget to leave me a like, and I'll see you guys again next time. Goodbye.